board in place. Can we have roll call, please?
Coiner.
Here.
Kefauver.
Here.
Okay. McBride. I think she might be late or absent. Meyer.
Here.
Ortiz.
Here.
Peterson.
Here.
Schertz. Spratt here, and Walker.
Here.
All right. We have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We have a quorum, and we will proceed with approval of the minutes of our last meeting, which would be September. A minute to review, and I will entertain a motion of approval.
Motion to approve.
Doing something. My phone never rings. I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the September minutes. Those indicating approval indicate with yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Okay. Votes of no. The minutes have been approved. We have no one here, I believe, for public comment. Okay. Well, then we will proceed with new business at this time. And we have Tim Stevens here, horticulture supervisor, for presentation. Thank you.
So hello, I just want to take a minute to introduce you to Tim Stevens. I'll let him do most of the talking, but just wanted to let you know how excited I am to have him on board. He's been with us for a few years, but probably in the last year-ish, he took on a leadership role with the Hort Division, and that has been a much a void that we had, and so Tim is doing a great job. I'll let him tell you all he does, he and his staff, of 2 additional part-time people as well as 2 additional full-time people as well as his part-time staff. So, thank you.
Hi. Oh, like Betsy said, my name's Tim Stevens. I'm the horticulture supervisor, and I was asked to come here and tell you a little bit about me and what we do at the horticulture department. So I'm not originally from Davenport. I grew up in Mount Ayr, Iowa, down in southwest Iowa on a farm. From there, I went to Iowa State University and got my degree in horticulture. While I was there, I worked at Ryman Gardens there by the stadium, as well as did a internship out in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania at Longwood Gardens, a large botanical garden out there. After college, I farmed some more. I worked for a tree care company for a couple years. And then after moving to Davenport, I worked north of town at a green roof growing company called Rooftop Sedums. And then I joined the Parks Department. It's almost 10 years ago now, in 2011. So that's a little bit of my background and how I came to be here. So I'll tell you a little bit about, a lot of people ask, so what do you guys do in the winter? Is one of the biggest questions I get whenever I say it. And so I just kind of broke down what we do month by month. Starting in, I lumped December and January together. That's when a lot of our seed starting and cutting propagation starts happening. We're kind of starting that now, but it gets more into the swing of things in December and January. That's when we trim and repot a lot of the bigger trees and plants in the conservatory. And then that always gets put on hold whenever there's time for snow removal or anything like that. We always chip in for snow removal all around the different routes around the city. February starts our spring flower show in the conservatory. A lot of azaleas, hydrangeas, we force tulips and daffodils, and really a lot of our growing plants for outdoors in the greenhouse. That's when that's really is still busy in February. Still growing plants in the greenhouse in March, but that's when we can usually start to get out into the parks and start to clean up all the flower beds that are starting to thaw out from around the from over winter. April is when we finish up any kind of seeding, transplanting for our outdoor flowers. That's when a lot of work starts in the rose garden to uncover the roses for the year, get that fertilized. Let's see. May becomes planting time for a lot of our flower beds throughout the city. We usually start in Vanderveer and then work our way down to the riverfront and out into the other parks. We have annual plantings at about 20 different sites around the city. So then after we get that planted, we kind of go into the maintenance phase. We got to keep the plants watered, mulched, weeded, and trimmed. And that's when a lot of our planning for the next year starts to happen. A lot of the ordering for poinsettias and mums and bulbs happens in June and July, so we have to kind of think ahead to, we're always already starting to think ahead to the winter and spring. So a lot of the ordering, and then happens in July, and continued maintenance on the flower beds. That's when we do a lot of work. July is when we do a lot of work on our mum standards in the conservatory. If you've never made it into the conservatory for the mum show, it's starting right now. We grow standard mums. We've got about 24 different varieties that we train to a one tall mum with a great big flower on it. So that a lot of that work happens in July and August. August is more flower bed maintenance, and then September is when the mums that we start bringing out mums into the conservatory and out into the different city parks. October, unfortunately, now it's time to start bringing in. We started with any tropical plants that we had out, and we're starting to bring in any of the annual flowers that are starting to decline, and they'll be gone soon after, with the freeze. And then also we're starting to already decorate, setting up the holiday lights, the Christmas lights that you see in Vanderveer Park. We've already started getting those set up for the year. And then November is when we start to take down the mum show out of the conservatory and set up for the poinsettia and light show in the conservatory. We start moving the poinsettias in, bring in Christmas trees, and get set up for that. And then we continue that, repeat that for the next year. That's kind of the basics of what we do throughout the year. Some of the projects that we've had this spring and summer, we've ordered some more perennials that we've planted at River's Edge, Union Station, and Lindsay Park. So I hope to add a few different sites each year around the city to anywhere where we have a perennial bed to kind of go through that and either beef it up or improve whatever perennials that we've got around the city. And then the bigger project that's starting and coming down and continuing to come down the road is the Stone Bridge area. Around the Stone Bridge area, there was one small flower bed there, but this year we created 4 beds, one at each corner of the Stone Bridge to brighten that area up. So that was kind of the first phase. Then the next we're working on, oh, there we go. Jessica's got a map, and I brought enough copies that each one, oh, you all have a copy of it. Okay, good. So yeah, what you're looking at there, oh.
Tim, here's a copy for you. I was just
Okay.
we have one person at home. I wanted to give the opportunity to see what you were referencing.
So yeah, I guess if you've got it in front of you there, the Stone Bridge is represented right here in the center, and then the 4 beds that are existing there now are on there. These different shapes here are going to be more flower beds throughout where it's just grass now. They'll have stone borders around them. And then the really cool feature that I think I'm really looking forward to see that is this line here is the existing road, but then this line here is a sidewalk going down to the bridge, across the bridge over to a circular sitting area with a flower bed around it. I think that will really be a great feature for that part of the park that's been kind of, I wouldn't say neglected, but a little bit bare compared to the rest of Nrpa Park. So, but right now we're in the planning phase. Todd from Aunt Rhodey's drew up this plan for us. He has the drafting skills to do that, and I kind of talked with him to kind of get the layout of the basic features. Right now I'm working on the plants that are going in, planning the plants that are going into the bed, getting some prices. So the pricing for the sidewalk will be one of the next bigger things that hurdles to go over, but we're hoping for construction on this part of it next spring. So I think that's all I had for you, so thank you very much for having me. Oh, sure.
I would. With that bridge, maybe add a gazebo down there, just like they have over at the Duck Creek. Isn't that where they have a lot of weddings and pictures and so forth like that? Maybe something you could add on to that besides what's there, because I do know that I've seen where they've had wedding people go over there and have pictures taken and so forth. So it might be an interesting idea.
It's an idea, yeah.
Okay.
The circular area at the end, that's kind of
anywhere around there, I guess. Yeah, I'm not a designer, but
right.
I think it would be a good idea to have one there. It'd be just another addition to that park over there.
It would.
I have a couple other questions too. So are you involved with the forestry too?
The forestry department handles any of the big trees. If we have a pruner that we can use from the ground.
Okay, so you're basically in the horticultural part,
right,
as
yeah.
far as plants and that type of thing.
Yeah, more the flower beds and shrubs. Yeah.
Well, then I won't waste your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, I do have one more thing I want to mention to you. Out on Brady Street, as you come into Davenport, that great big huge sign out there that says Davenport, welcome to Davenport.
Right.
I haven't seen flowers in there probably for 2 or 3 years.
Right.
Do we have anything to do with that?
I'll let Betsy handle that.
Thank you, Betsy.
Yeah, so that sign is actually a public works facility maintenance sign. So it's one of those things where if we start doing it, it will become ours.
Oh.
And without any additional manpower, resources, that sort of thing, that's difficult. So if they ask us to go in and clear it, we do. But that's been our...
So I need to talk to our alderman, is what we need to do with that. Okay, thank you.
Great comments. Welcome to the group.
Oh, thanks.
Have a good time,
Yeah.
I've seen you many times
Yeah.
at the conservatory. Thanks so much.
Yeah, good to see you.
Next, under new business, is Park and Recreation Review presentation, and we welcome Chad back. We're excited that he's on the mend and will be with us tonight, so thank you.
Thank you. Well, you stole my thunder a little bit, Wendy. Before I jump into all this, I was just going to tell you how grateful and thankful I am to be back in your presence. I missed you all, missed our meetings, and I wanted to take the opportunity to publicly thank our team, especially the leadership team sitting behind me, and Jessica, and Betsy, and Teresa, Troy, Becca, for holding down the fort and keeping everything running so smoothly while I was out. I couldn't be more grateful for their efforts and all of your guys' continual comments and feedback and everything we do. So with that, I'm just going to talk a little bit about some park standards and then a CIP project update, budget review, just some mid-level sort of things. We were intending to have the draft of the parks master plan at this meeting. It was not to the standard or complete to the level that I felt comfortable bringing it. And talking with our consultants, we decided to push that off to the November meeting. But the first section here, I want to talk in a lot of you who have been in the Parks and Rec Advisory Board for a long time or have dealt with us probably know a lot of this stuff. But I think it's sort of critical to go through just some sort of park definitions that'll help you guys when you do get the park master plan to sort of understand from a system level the different types of parks and how they fit into the system and what their intended use is and how we categorize them by Nrpa standards and that sort of stuff. So if at any time you have a question, feel free to chime in. This should be a conversation. And
I think you have to point it at me here. Okay. I am your clerk.
all right, next slide. Thanks, Jess. Okay, so when I talk about park standards, we're really going to talk a little bit about park type, size, service area, and function. When we talk about Nrpa standards, I do this, yeah, no, sorry. There's really four main types of parks we are talking about. The first being a mini or pocket park. Generally, these are less than 1.5 acres. They serve a 1/4 mile radius or the immediate neighborhood. They are generally always walk-to parks. So that means no parking, no vehicular access, usually on street if there is any need for a car to park. Could contain a small play structure, picnic tables, benches, small shelters. In our system, we have 4 what we would call mini parks. So those are North Gaiman, Indian Springs, Monroe, and Sylvan. So we don't have a lot of these, and they're really not ultimately are common in park systems. They're usually just a handful within a system. So next. Neighborhood parks. So this is what everybody's really accustomed to, and this makes up the bulk and majority of any park system and our park system for that matter. We have 16 neighborhood parks in our system, generally 5 to 10 acres, serve a 1/2 mile service radius, serves the immediate adjacent neighborhood. Generally should be walked to in design, but sometimes you'll find parking depending on what amenity is in the park. Usually a larger or multiple play structures, a larger shelter, could have sport fields or courts, tennis courts, basketball court, that type of thing, maybe a single ball diamond, and then walking paths. I'm not going to read all 16 of our neighborhood parks. They're up there, and you guys should be fairly familiar with them, but that makes up the majority bulk of our park system. Community parks, so these are our larger parks, greater than 10 acres. Generally, they're diverse in nature, meaning they have a multitude of recreational amenities, everything from passive to active recreation opportunities. These are designed to serve the whole community and are considered destination parks at times, as well as the immediate neighborhood, right? So they sort of have a dual purpose. And this is where, when we do planning, particularly in our community parks, it can get a little bit confusing or sort of tedious, not tedious, but confusing in that, you know, you try to look at the community needs and what aspects they may want as a larger population, as well as balancing the immediate neighborhood's wants and desires for that park. So it's accessible by multiple modes of transportation, usually has parking lots. Restrooms are common in community parks as well, larger shelters or rentable facilities. We have 10 community parks in Davenport, which is a high number for the size of our community, but that's a good thing. Duck Creek, Eastern Avenue, Emice, Fedgeberry, Garfield, Jungie, Lindsay, Marquette, Northwest, and Prairie Heights are all considered community parks from our standards and Nrpa standards in our community. And then lastly, you have regional special use parks. So these include specialized recreational activities, for example, golf courses would be considered specialized use, the skate park, city cemetery, or they are used by the region, not solely specifically for the community. So Credit Island, for example, is a regional draw. You know, it's an island, it's historic, it's nature. We draw from all over the Quad City area to Credit Island. The active recreation corridor, i.e. the skate park, specialized use. Centennial, most of our riverfront parks we would consider Centennial River Heritage. You know, those are regional or special use. LeClaire Park because of the band shell. North Marquette Dola, River Heritage, the soccer complex. Sunderbrook because of its unique trail system is considered a regional draw. And then Vanderveer with its historic and regional connotation with the conservatory and everything that's there. And then Veterans Memorial Park is a specialized park designed to honor and memorialize veterans. So that's just sort of a breakdown of sort of the different park systems, because we get a lot of questions and a lot of people come with a lot of great ideas for, why don't you put this in this park? Or why don't you put this in that park? And we don't want you to think like there's no rhyme or reason in our planning or why amenities are brought to certain parks and not in other parks. So this is sort of our guiding principle sometimes as it comes to NRPA. Any questions on that? I'll pause. Okay, that's just Little Parks 101. Next, we'll talk about some project updates or just sort of give you a overview of all the projects we have going on. So not only has the team been busy holding down the fort while I've been recovering, they've also been inundated with a plethora of projects. We're blessed to have some ARPA funding come our way, and I'll talk a little bit about that, as well as our CIP and our park development projects. And I know you guys have probably questions on where we are on certain things, so we'll give you an update if you have a question on the status of a particular project or when it's gonna get going. If it hasn't already, go ahead and chime in and we'll give you an update. So ARPA, if you're familiar, this is the American Rescue Plan Act. This is federal funds that municipalities received as part of the COVID relief. If you keep up to date, I believe the city itself got about around $40 million. And of that, we got about $2.5 million to do some park improvement stuff. So when I mean we, myself, Betsy, and a couple of the admin team and City Hall, Corey Spiegel, we identified some areas based on some previous public input, some of the park master plan stuff that's coming down the line, and just things that we've had on the radar in the CIP that has been unfunded to spend some of this money on. One thing to note, this is federal money, so it has some strings attached to it and some criteria as to how we can spend it and where we could spend it. Generally, it could replace facilities and equipment, so you can't spend it on staffing or anything like that, so it had to be capital replacement money. So these are all the projects that we've identified. Becca's working diligently to start some input processes with neighborhoods and the schools. A lot of this stuff you're gonna see probably, was it like 10 new playgrounds out of this? Close to that. So a lot of stuff coming down the line. So I'm just gonna go through it. Starting with Cork Hill, we are looking to replace the existing tennis courts because they are underutilized with a multi-sport court, which will serve as mini pitch soccer, basketball, a multitude of court sports. And then there is an existing small spray feature in that park. We're looking to upgrade that and replace that with a larger splash pad. Dose Pool. Dose Pool, for you guys that may not know, has had some mechanical issues in recent years. It's aging, and a lot of the pumps and filter system are past their useful life, as well as the main shell of the tank leaks significantly water. So it needs a lot of repair work, so to speak. So we talked to Alderman Dunn through this, going to decommission the pool and take it out and then replace it with a large destination splash pad. So think, I don't know if you guys have been to like Adventureland and the big main water feature splash pad they have there, something similar to that. So it'll be significant, more so than what's at Centennial Park. It'll be a true destination west side splash pad. So E-Mice, the existing playground was on, I think, 3rd or 4th on our list to be replaced due to its age. So we're going to replace that with an inclusive play structure similar to what is at Vanderveer with Gabe's. Probably not as customized because that drives cost, but it'll be an inclusive play structure, and then a obstacle course style playground similar to like the one at Sunderbrook. Fedgeberry Park, when I first started about 3 years ago, I don't know if you remember, we did some conceptual plans for the inside the Learning Center storybook theme play area that never got funded through the CIP. So we are lucky to have some money to go in and do a portion of that and start that play structure off in the Learning Center. Harbor Road Park, new obstacle course playground area, and a Gaga ball court. Harrington Park, we're proposing to do a new multi-sport court there. Jefferson Park, this one's interesting. We looked at that, knew it needed some updates. When we got out there, if you guys have been to Jefferson Park, it's really basically a big detention bowl with a play piece in the middle of it. We were really sort of at a loss and scratching our heads. Staff, Betsy, me, Corey, figuring out what to do with this park. So we're gonna have a pretty thorough master plan and a neighborhood input program to really figure out what Jefferson Park could look like, because it desperately needs some updating and some love, but it's a challenging site in that it sits in a very sloped detention basin that, from an accessibility standpoint and ADA, it's a nightmare. So we really have to think about what to do there. We're gonna really involve the neighborhood in those discussions. Lafayette Park, so we're gonna look at some new recreational features, probably some throwback to earlier years, since Lafayette is our oldest park and historical. And then we need to relocate the existing playground because it's so close to the corner of 4th and Gaines. It's just a concern from a safety standpoint with kids playing so close to that busy street. We'd like to relocate it more centrally within the park or away from those busy roads. Van Buren, we were proposing to decommission those tennis courts as well and put a multi-sport court there. And then Wayland, we'll get a new playground and replace the existing playground. So that's the ARPA funding. So a lot of projects there. We'll move on to CIP projects. So along with the ARPA projects we got going, we have all these slated for our normal CIP. These were all things that were funded through the last budget cycle or the current budget we're in, FY22. Some of them are annual programs or biannual. City cemetery improvements, every year we get about $10,000 just to help with replacing some headstones and just general upkeep of the cemetery. Duck Creek Park improvements, this is a major program in that we are looking to renovate and fix up the existing tennis courts, add pickleball courts, potentially a dog park, and a obstacle style playground. So we have, for FY22, we have design money funded this year, and then the construction money the next 2 fiscal years after that. So this year we'll be going out to hire the design work out. And when that happens, obviously all you guys will be included through the input on that project. LeClaire Park electrical upgrades, this is part of the flood mitigation. This is really just to get all our in-ground electrical and other things up to where they can be worked on during flood events. Playground replacement program, this was a new one that was added last year, and it will be an annual program. So this is actually the first fiscal year that we've had this program. This is funded at $175,000 and is really intended to replace or add playgrounds to the system In particular, we're looking at more of our community parks to do more larger destination-style playgrounds. In the Park Development Fund, in years past, we usually replace 1 or 2 of our neighborhood playgrounds out of that, and we'll probably continue to look to do that as well here and there. We're getting pretty caught up on all our playgrounds. We were pretty far behind, but in recent years, we've handled a lot of the ones that were really aging. Park Amenity ADA Access Program, this is an annual program. This is what we use to basically get ADA pass to different park amenities. This year, or the FY21 fund was being spent at EMICE, and I think they're starting work out there soon. That's all the connection to the ball fields and all the playground. I don't know, Betsy, have we talked about next year's funding? I don't think we've identified, or have we? Garfield is our next. So we're really trying with this to tackle our ball field parks and get accessible pass to all the fields. And so EMICE, Garfield's next. We did Ridgeview and Lindsay, yeah. So this is an annual program. Park roads, parking lots, that's an annual, just funded to help us repair and maintain some of our parking lots. Recreational path reconstruction program, this is biannual, so this is basically maintenance on our trails where we have issues. We use this money to repair trails. And then the Vanderveer Conservatory Repair Program is funded this year, and I believe that's the roof, correct? No?
That's a separate CIP.
Oh, that's a separate one. What's this one?
This one would be like plant benches.
Okay. All right. So those are all our FY22 CIP projects that we would have. So we have ARPA projects, that, and then we have our park development list. So we're really busy.
Yeah.
On top of just maintaining operations on a daily basis, we have all these projects to go through. So park development, you're all familiar with this, right? Every year you guys get the opportunity to rate and evaluate the projects, which we'll be bringing forward to you in December. But this was last year's list that you guys all voted on and approved and council approved. Aquatic safety equipment, that's been completed. The Eastern Avenue disc golf baskets is in progress. Goose Creek restroom is in progress and will be bid and hopefully installed spring or summer. Junior 13 lighting project is in progress. North Gaiman Park Playground, we've put out, or we're about to put out the request for that playground. You just saw the Vanderveer Stone Bridge beautification from Tim. Nahant Marsh security cameras, we're working with Nahant to identify that and get that ordered. Wayland Park walking path, this one is in Public Works Court. We're waiting on a staff member from engineering to be assigned to do the design so we can get that out to bid. And then the community bike rack project, we've reached out to West. We've had discussions. They are working on concepts. So hopefully we'll have those concepts and we'll bring those back to you guys to look at and approve, and then we can get those rolling. And then Northwest Park Playground Edition, that one we're also getting ready to issue the RFP for proposals. So a lot of projects. Any questions? Jerry, golf. Why isn't there anything on golf?
One question I have is all the new park systems that you guys go look at to what you're going to put in, is there anything that we can see that what's out there that they have to offer? Or are they all basically the same kind of program? I mean, a playground.
Sure.
You're going to put a playground in a park.
Yep.
So what determines what you're going to put in that park?
Yeah.
That's what I kind of want to see. I want to see, is it a large one, small one, or what kind? Are there new concepts in these
So
playgrounds?
I'll walk you through our process.
Okay.
And so what we do when we know we're going to replace a playground, we will issue an RFP, a request for proposals, which goes out to all the playground companies. And in that, we will give them certain guidelines. And then we stay pretty general, so to speak, unless we're looking for a specific playground type, like an obstacle style playground or a splash pad or something real specific, or inclusive play or something like that. But we generally give them a framework, like we'll tell them the footprint of the park. If it's replacing an existing playground, we generally have, it's gonna go in the same area generally, so we know the footprint. We'll give them the age range, generally 5 to 12-year-olds, unless we're looking for a specific playground or want that included as well. And then we'll give them a price or what our budget is. So generally with park development, we target about $65,000 for a general neighborhood playground. Then the playground companies will take that and basically send us options. And usually they all have 2 to 3. Sometimes we've started to, even before we issue the RFP, I'll step back a step, is we'll do a neighborhood meeting and we'll talk to the neighborhood where the park is and ask them sort of what type of amenities they may be looking for in their playground. You know, do you want multiple decks? Do you want a twisty slide? Do you want gliders? Do you want, how many swing bays do you want? That type of stuff, right? And that helps also guide the RFP that we send out to the playground companies so they know what to send back to us. So then we get the proposals back, and then we always put them up online and let the community and the neighborhood vote or tell us what their preference is. We can and have in the past gone back to that neighborhood group we met with initially and show them the proposals and say, what do you like? You know, what don't you like? And then from there, we take whichever one was selected by the neighborhood, and that's the one we usually go with.
Well, I'm not saying that you're not doing a good job, because you guys do an excellent job. I just want to make sure that when we do buy a playground, is that it's the new style,
Oh,
I guess.
sure.
Like, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, and generally,
What's new?
Yeah, and generally the playground companies will send us when their proposals, their most current
Okay.
or up-to-date system, or what they have new to offer. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And same way with the shelters.
Yep.
Same way with that too as well.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, Chris.
I was just down at Lafayette Park Tuesday, actually, and I agree with the need to move the playground away from that busy intersection, but I also, especially after Tyler Park, kind of lost its left field of the baseball, casual baseball diamond. I would suggest there's a way somewhere to put it in Lafayette Park that doesn't remove the baseball diamond down there. I could tell that one doesn't get used much, but I know there's some people downtown talking about baseball leagues and things, so I could see a world where there could be some really cool baseball casual sandlot type games down there right at Lafayette Park, right downtown. So
Sure.
yeah, my kids and I have been trying to visit every park this summer in Davenport. So we're probably about 2/3 of the way there.
I would like to just add to or share a comment with Jerry. If you watch, and like Betsy says, the playground has been installed at Tyler Park. If you see that, go and see it, because that is totally different from anything that you see in our traditional structure. But each park looks different. There was a time when they were pretty carbon copy standards. And if you go to Tyler Park and you look up at the park playground equipment that is being, I'm not going to say it's going away, but it's so traditional looking. But you will see, and another one that is very unique, in my opinion, is Peterson Park. So take a look at that one, go to Junghee, go to Tyler, and look at how different they are, and that will support,
And those have
the
been
comments.
our last 3 that were replaced most recently in the Park Development Fund. So yeah, I mean, you're seeing a big change from what our standard older playgrounds look like to what we're getting now.
Okay, that's great.
And Tyler's a really good example of something that's different.
Wow. Yes, it is. It's good. Yeah.
It's tall, yeah.
Tall, yes. Kids love it.
Are we, I have one more question. Are we adding things for the older people too as well in some of these parks now? I put that in our report one time, that we not only should have it for the young kids, but we should have items in there where, like horseshoes, or I don't know, I'm just using an example for people. Maybe that's what the tennis courts and those others are like that for, but I mean, if there's other things there.
Yeah, so a lot of that, and what I'm hopeful that will materialize out of the parks master plan and the input process will really be in the recommendation section. When you guys see that next month, we'll identify a lot of those needs, because oftentimes when we do neighborhood meetings, particularly on a playground, we draw families and younger people, right? Because that amenity is what they're interested in, right? So the way we're trying to capture additional input for across age ranges and different demographics is primarily through the master plan. So that should identify what parks may want older elements or for the older population or things like that. So
Jody has a comment.
yes, ma'am.
Hi. So how is it decided on the cost when you do a replacing structure? How do you decide from one park to the next? Is there a baseline?
Yeah, so what we've typically done with the park development, when we propose a playground replacement, we say we know we can get a pretty medium to large standard piece for about $65,000, and that's sort of what we've been at. Now, that's always open for discussion, obviously. When we do the evaluations, particularly in park development, if there's a playground that's proposed to be replaced and you guys say, you know what, maybe we should go a little bigger, or maybe we should do a specialty type playground or something. And then at that point, we'll figure out what we think that cost would be and plug that number in. But generally, the guideline has been about that $65,000 range for a standard
that's your starting
playground.
point.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll go down low. Like, for example, the Northwest Park Playground Edition, that's a top playground. I think we only budgeted about $18,000 for that because we knew it's a smaller piece. Now, conversely, when we did the obstacle style playground that was at Credit Island, that's now at Sunderbrook, we knew that was going to be a more expensive piece, and we budgeted $90,000 for that. So,
Thank you.
Any other questions on projects? Mike, you're awfully quiet. You're making me nervous. All right, moving on. So this is the last slide. I know it's really hard to read. I apologize because that was a cut and paste thing. But just in general, this is our operating budget. This was this fiscal year's out of the book, just so you get an understanding or just as a refresher. I'm actually going to move closer to make sure I'm reading it right. But in general, our overall operating budget for FY22 is about $8.3 million, right? And what I want to talk about a little bit is just differentiating between operation and capital. So this is basically the funding we receive through the general fund, primarily and through fees and charges for programs and services that cover our day-to-day operations. That covers our staffing, covers our supplies, covers our trust and agency expenditures, any of our cross-departmental expenditures, as well as the golf course operations, right, as a whole. Now, the golf courses in River's Edge, if you remember, they're separate funds, they're enterprise funds. In this scenario, they're lumped in just to see what the total department costs are, but those are self-sustaining funds in that we are tasked with trying to generate revenue to cover our expenditures, right? In recent years, River's Edge and golf have had small subsidies from the general fund to cover their operations. Golf, I think this year and last year actually exceeded its covering, so we were operating in the black, which was good. But River's Edge usually takes a little bit of help, and then recent years with the pandemic and the flooding and everything we've had and closing that facility as frequently as we have, it has not had the opportunity to generate the revenue it needs to. But we're hoping for some normalcy and some return to activity down there, which we're seeing increase in ice rental, that those numbers will improve. So was there a question in the chat, Jess?
Crystal wanted to know if any of this is going to be available to them.
Sure.
Yeah, like all these slides would be nice to have.
Yeah, we could. Well, it'll be part of the minutes for next month, but we can also email it out to you guys. So, yeah, not a problem. So that sort of concludes my just sort of update and majority of my director's report too. So,
Okay, I was going to
unless
ask.
you have
We're
any other
moving on,
questions
so-
that I didn't cover in that,
you might, since we do have new advisory board members, you just mentioned briefly what we vote on. So could you do just a couple of sentences on what the process is?
For park development?
Yeah, for park development,
Yep.
how we will be doing that, just a sense of that.
Yep. So staff is in the process right now of compiling different projects to be submitted as part of the program. And if you guys have projects too, you can also send those our way, and we'll fold them in and get cost estimates for those and put them in the program to be voted on. So in December, I think we're targeting December this year, correct? We will bring you, or I will do a presentation of all the different projects that were submitted, right? And we'll walk through them and give you guys a little bit of detail. We're doing it a little bit differently this year. You're going to get ahead of time. We're formalizing it a little bit as far as how they get submitted. So there'll be some more detailed information for you guys, like a better description, a better budget number, what planning process or council pillar does it align with? What is its service impact or operation impact to the department if we go through with it? All that type of stuff. So in December, you'll see all those projects, and then we send out basically a score sheet where you guys rate them and prioritize them. And then council does the same. We send it to council, and then staff does it as sort of a tiebreaker if there's any large discrepancies between you and council. So then we take all those rankings from you and council, and then we compile the list of all the projects that fit into our funding. So we get allocated $350,000 every year for this program. We'll usually, like you saw last year's slate or last year's projects, we usually get maybe 10 to 12 funded out of it. And then we bring it back to you guys in January to approve that slate. And then from there, it goes to council for approval. And then starting next fiscal year, once all that's approved, we get to roll and start doing all those projects. So is that what you're asking for, Wendy?
Yeah, I think that's a nice overview for people. So
Okay.
Are there questions? Yeah.
I have one question. It's a general question.
Yeah.
Adler Theater, does that belong to the city, or is that part of the River Center?
That's
Adler?
a good question. I don't know. Yeah, I think it is.
That is a city-owned facility that's operated by a third-party management company. So Venue Works, I believe, is what it's called, is the company that operates those two buildings.
Okay, what kind of input does the city have on who they bring, how often they use? Do you guys have any input on that, or you just leave it?
That's outside of the Parks Department. I don't know, what, River Center under facilities?
Yeah, River Center and Adler Theater are together, and my guess would be Mallory would oversee that as the finance department.
Yeah. No, the part we don't play any role in either of those two.
Well, we'll say, do you have any other things to add to your director's report, or shall we move on to our staff reports that are written in the minutes?
No, I'm out of breath, so I'm good.
Great.
Well, I will turn it over
No,
to
it's not great.
the
It's
rest of
great
the
that
team,
we're moving on. Yeah.
Thank you.
Again, what you have are the written reports from staff. And so if we could take a minute, and then if you have particular questions, now would be the time to get clarification. Any general comments? I think we're good with it so far.
I have a basic question.
Sure, Jody.
I see here there's got mowing crews will be wrapping up their seasons by the end of the month. Is that just the basic grass? Is that the no-mow areas that should be done? I don't know what the guidelines are on that.
So yeah, our mowing crews are seasonal in nature, so generally work April to end of October. So yes, that means mowing, that means mulching in parks, all of that stuff will cease. We do keep a couple of big 580 mowers on till about halfway through November to do some of that leaf mulching. But as we all know, we can mulch as many leaves as we want to in the fall, and there'll still be more in the spring, so.
Thank you.
I just put a star by one thing under recreation, and it was just reflection of the keynotes and the fact that we were kind of singled out as having a good blend of in-person and virtual, input. And so I just think that's great that you've all worked hard, as we have, to have our board members be able to attend. So Teresa, you're moving over. Can you want to make a comment on that?
Yeah, like Betsy had said last meeting, sometimes when we go, we get really great new ideas and stuff. This was not one of those times as much, but it also kind of affirms that we really are a really great department and city. We do a lot. And especially with the challenges that people have had the last couple of years with our relationship with the school district and with just really great staff, really trying to make sure we get programming out. We ran both summers, we ran summer camps, and none of the departments I talked to did that. So we definitely were offering more to our community than most. It also was, we were in Iowa versus some of the other states that probably were more restricted that way too.
Jerry?
Under park operations, it says here, we continue to operate shorthanded. We are exploring some of the reorganization within our division, which should allow us to increase staff wages, as we are not optimistic that this was a year challenge. What do we mean by wage increases and staff? What is that?
Well, I did whatever she said.
You know where I'm going with this, don't you, Betsy?
Yeah, so.
Okay. So you go ahead and.
So we have two things at play in all three of our divisions as we look at our part-time staffing. We are given a pot of money, and then we are also giving a pay band. So for example, all of my mowers start at $10 an hour, and then every year they get a quarter increase. So that pot of money doesn't necessarily increase a lot. So what we're looking at, and what I'm looking at in my division, is can I reorganize a little bit so I have less staff, which I don't like, but my pot of money's not getting bigger. So so in order for me to give significant raises to attract more workers, which has been a challenge for all of us, and not just in the city of Davenport, it's been a challenge nationwide. That's my plan, to reorganize a little bit, so then hopefully that base pay maybe can be $12 an hour, to try to attract some more workers.
So what could we do to increase your pile of money?
Well, Chad's works hard on that.
I know
has
Chad
from
does.
Day one.
But who at the city should we talk to? It sounds like that's where it's coming
it's all part of the budget process.
Yeah.
And, Chad is fighting for money. Chief Sikorsky is fighting for money. And fighting's not the right word, but arguing,
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I just think that would solve some of your employee problems is what I'm saying.
Right. If you, and Chad, I guess I should let you answer this before I give you my opinion.
Well, no, Betsy's right. I mean, and it's not just our department, it's a citywide challenge. And if you talk to our HR department or Stepping Stones for that matter, and like Betsy said, it's a nationwide issue. I mean, we have, I think, very good jobs for people to work. Unfortunately, our rates of pay are not necessarily keeping up with the competition, and with Illinois in particular being a $15 minimum wage state, that's right across the river. Sometimes it's easier to go work a lesser job, maybe not as physically demanding or labor intensive, and get paid more than what we pay. And what we're finding is that we are just having a hard time getting applicants even to apply for our jobs, let alone quality applicants once we get into the interview process. So the theory is if the overall pot of money isn't going to increase, we can restructure to where maybe we can slide that pay band higher to get a better quality applicant or employee that, and what happens with the pay band being lower too, from time to time, we get people and we bring them on board, we spend, hours training them and onboarding them, and they quit like a day or two later or a week later. And it's a constant cycle with Betsy and Teresa and Troy and their staffing to try to, keep those employees retained, find employees that can do what we need them to do. And, but as far as the pot of money, I mean, ultimately it's council that sets the priorities of how funding goes based on the recommendations of staff. And so.
I'm a firm believer of having less people and getting better qualified people, and you get more productivity in that direction. So you can pay more money to those people. Is that what your intentions are then?
So, yes. And the other thing I guess I do just want to touch on, those individuals that you are seeing out in our parks right now that are working our day camp programs, that are in our golf course, I personally would not trade any of them for anyone else. Okay, so when we're asking for a higher qualified candidate, please, please, please do not think that those we have are not. People. They are fabulous. What we ask of our employees as either 29-hour employees or 7-month employees is mind-boggling. My husband tells me every week, I can't believe those guys do what they do for you with what you're paying them. Okay, so I'm very passionate about that, and I know Chad is too. I just wanted to make sure that was very clearly understood. But yes, but when somebody retires, when somebody decides, I don't want to get beat up on this 580, 7 months out of the year, so I'm going to go find a different job. How do we replace them? And yes, we need to be raising that rate of pay, and it also will entice those that are with us to stay a little longer, because we are paying them a better wage.
I think we're all going in the right direction then.
Thank you. Jody?
Sorry, I got a question. With the article in the paper about TBK Bank doing some more development across the street from their facility, have you heard what they're going to do, and how's that going to impact our parks department? Because I'm not quite sure what they're doing out there, but they do plan on a big development out there.
Yeah, I haven't heard specifically and I can't imagine what their expansion would be, because they already have pretty much every sport amenity you need in that complex short of ice, right? Which, but I'm not aware, but I can reach out and see more details. The impact of TBK on our operations, I mean, I think the only real area we saw a slight decline was with our turf at River's Edge, but that's starting to bounce back. A lot of times what you see with a new facility comes online in a region, people want to see the shiny new toy, and they go check it out, and then they realize what they had before was better, and they come back. So, I mean, that's what we're hoping happens with some of our adult soccer leagues and other things that may have been impacted by TBK. Plus, my understanding is TBK is quite a significant higher rental rate and fees, so you pay for what, the monstrosity amenity that it is. But yeah, so.
Shall we move on to Chris? Do you have a report for us?
Yeah, just a short report, even though it was a long meeting. I had to actually leave the Riverfront Improvement Commission meeting early. It was like a 2+ hour meeting because they were reviewing the flood plan and kind of the draft of that. And the current plan is, from what I can gather, that would affect the parks especially, is to try and protect River Drive through downtown with berms and maybe some walls between the railroad tracks and River Drive. So what the Riverfront Improvement Commission members' main concern was that doesn't protect most of what they consider their assets, like Leclerc Park and the new playground and Veterans Memorial Park, and well, basically all the riverfront parks except for what's north of the train tracks. So I didn't see what their final recommendation was. I meant to watch the video after the meeting, but they were definitely very focused on the fact that this flood protection wasn't necessarily protecting anything to do with the levee or the Riverfront Improvement Commission or parks, to be honest. And then like out east, like Lindsay Park area, it seemed like they were leaning towards Raisin River Drive to protect the East Village type of thing, and a lot of sewer and other improvements to keep the water from coming behind whatever flood protection there is. So it's a big project that they're working on, and like I said, it was a big meeting with a lot of details. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to stay the entire time, but it's definitely going to be a big project for the Leclerc Park corridor there.
Thank you. Shall we move on to advisory time? We've had an opportunity to ask a lot of questions and got some answers, but one of the things that we had as kind of a follow-up, I asked Jerry if he had an update on information about Credit Island with the security and safety issues that were expressed.
Hello.
Yes.
The conversations I had with Rick Dunn was, this is on the figures down in Credit Island and the stature of what the condition that those were in. I talked to Rick Dunn, and Rick Dunn said, I don't seem to think that there's that much vandalism down there, that a lot of these figures out there, they're pretty old and they're starting to fall apart to a certain point. I think, Betsy, didn't they, and I've been down there a few times, that they've been stored away, am I correct? And I'm not sure if she's working on them or not, because I just happened to be down there Sunday and I didn't even see anything laying around down there at all. Oh, they are inside there? Well, I was in the lodge, but I didn't see them. Oh, in the back, okay. Well, anyway, I don't know what else you could do to do anything with that, except for maybe next year when she puts them back out again, we ought to look and see what condition they're in when they do put them out there, and then evaluate it at that time. And then if we see where there is vandalism, if that's the case, then maybe we need to really look hard at it. That's what I see.
Thank you. Other things about advisory time that need to be brought up? I can't read that. It says, Krista says,
Krista, go ahead if you have a question, dear.
Yeah.
I know that we were talking about putting drainage in for along the riverfront. I was curious if that had anything to do with the riverfront parks.
It will at some point, I think, once they decide what level of flood resiliency mitigation they're going to go with. I know they're still in the review portion of the plan and with the recommendations. There shouldn't be anything that has major impact to the riverfront parks. A lot of it's going to be, I think sewer upgrades and things like that help alleviate some of the backwater coming up. But I have not heard of anything that is going to be of major concern to impact the riverfront parks at this point.
The reason why I asked, I was just curious if we were planning on implementing anything for downstream energy-saving implementations, such as electricity thereof that could power the parks or anything like that, if it's been thought of. I know that we have a major energy collector thereof, and I was wondering if we could utilize that as a retaining project.
Nothing has been brought to my attention, but I'd be happy to have that discussion with our capital manager who's sort of leading that flood plan and see if there was any discussion or comments and get back to you.
Please, I was curious if we could get more information on that, or if that we had any partnership thereof in communication.
Okay.
Good topic to investigate. Thanks for those comments. Jerry?
Just a little thing with the golf courses. Just want to put a note out there. I sure would like to see somehow or another get into some kind of fund we could put aside to build clubhouses at Emise and Duck Creek. What could we do to get started? Who do we talk to get started?
That's a good question. Well, I can tell you that we have the Emise Clubhouse as a outlying CIP project, but it's currently unfunded and it's, I think, 4 years out. We've set aside $1.5 million to do that. As far as starting like a foundation or a fund outside of city money, is that what you're getting at, Jerry? Yeah. I could talk to Mallory, our finance director, to see. I know our previous finance director, I think if you remember a couple of years ago when we were talking about a foundation and all that, and he sort of nipped that at that time. I haven't had that conversation, or it hasn't come back up with our current finance director. So it may be an opportunity to start talking about that. Another mechanism that we haven't really talked about, but we could, would be, because I've seen golf courses do this because, you know, they're an enterprise fund and they have to raise money outside of general fund coffers, or if they're privately owned. Anyway, would be to tack on like $1 or $2 surcharge to start that fund and pass that on to golfers if they're interested, you know, and then collect.
I don't think that'd be a problem at all.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that done in certain circumstances to do capital projects on golf courses, so we can explore that. And then kick that off as a reserve to start that clubhouse. And I think it goes over better when the golfers know their surcharge or additional fee is going to something specific, some specific improvement to that course, you know, rather than we're just raising fees to help cover operation increases or whatever. So
I'm a salesperson. I think the only thing I can say is no.
Yeah, right.
He has dollar signs on his glasses. Thanks for that. I think that brings up some important points. Question, Jody.
What about grants? I know Mallory does an excellent job trying to locate grants. Okay.
Yeah, most of the grants that we've ever explored, and Troy, correct me if I'm wrong, as far as if you're talking about golf, generally need to do one or two things, and it's either address a underserved need or a particular population or a program that helps, like through the PGA, or it needs to be generally something that funds a new project or new construction, not necessarily rehabbing old stuff. But we can certainly look into some grants and see if there's anything out there. Nothing's come across our plate in the golf world yet. Right, Troy?
Good.
Right.
Good discussion and energizing of ideas at this point. I would like to, at this time, accept a motion for adjournment. I've not seen any other comments coming forward.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Is there a second? Okay.
I second.
Thank you. Those saying yes, let's adjourn, signify with aye.
Aye.
Don't forget that our next meeting is November 18th, and we have a fine listing of lots of community events coming up, so take a look and try a couple out in the coming months. So great discussion, and see you in November or someplace at one of these events, or at Tyler Park. Thanks.